here in Highland Park, Illinois, following a deadly 4th of July parade. This is Lake County's Major Crimes Task Force. Chris Covelli speaking right now. Let's listen in.
The community has been absolutely terrific as it comes to reporting information that they have, things they may have witnessed, things they may have seen, turning over video that has really helped us further the investigation and aid investigators. One point I just want to clarify is Robert Crimo III, he's 21. He'll be 22 in September of this year, and he's a resident of Highwood. So throughout the past 24 hours, investigators have spoken with numerous witnesses, some of the survivors. They've had the opportunity to review numerous video clips, both from cell phone video recordings and fixed cameras in the area, and they've conducted a number of other follow-up investigations. And based on where we're at this point in the investigation, and some of this is still preliminary, so is subject to change as we keep moving forward, but we do believe Crimo pre-planned this attack for several weeks. He brought a high-powered rifle to this parade. He accessed the roof of a business via a fire escape ladder and began opening fire on the innocent Independence Day celebration goers. The rifle was purchased in Illinois, and the information we have thus far is that it appears to have been purchased legally by Crimo. During the attack, Crimo was dressed in women's clothing, and investigators do believe he did this to conceal his facial tattoos and his identity and help him during the escape with the other people who were fleeing the chaos. During the attack, we believe that Crimo fired more than 70 rounds from this rifle into the crowd of innocent people. Following the attack, Crimo exited the roof, he dropped his rifle, and he blended in with the crowd, and he escaped. He walked to his mother's home, who lived in the area, and he blended right in with everybody else as they were running around, almost as he was an innocent spectator as well. He borrowed his mother's vehicle. We issued an alert yesterday afternoon. Chief Jogman provided the vehicle information and Crimo's information. We're very thankful that an alert member of the community saw Crimo's vehicle traveling southbound on Route 41, dialed 911. An alert North Chicago police officer spotted the vehicle, waited for additional backup units to arrive, conducted a traffic stop, and they were able to safely apprehend Crimo with no injuries to the officers. Inside the vehicle, there was a second rifle located. Indications is that was purchased by Crimo as well. Thus far, over 30 people were injured during the attack, and this does not include the 6 who lost their lives. Right now, Crimo remains in custody at this time. There are no indications that there was anybody else involved in this attack. By all indications, it appears Crimo was acting by himself. The Lake County State's Attorney's Office has been with us from the ground level. They're with us this morning. They were with us through the night. We continue to review the information. Investigators are still developing leads and very critical information. Once we're at a point where we're ready to review all of that information for charges, we will sit down with the state's attorney and review for criminal charges. I'm going to turn this over to the mayor, and then I'll be back up to answer questions. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Today is a day of grieving together, a day to pause, a day to remember those who left us, those who were injured, and for strength for our community. Several vigil and prayer services are taking place today, both inside and beyond Highland Park. They are as follows. The Community Church of Lake Bluff, 117 East Scranton Avenue, Lake Bluff, will hold a prayer service today at noon. The service will include prayer and music at Christ Church on the corner of Route 60 and Waukegan Avenue in Lake Forest. Trinity Grace Church and Christ Church has organized a community prayer gathering at 3 p.m. at Trinity Grace Church, 1506 Half Day Road, Highland Park. Everyone is welcome. Highland Park Presbyterian Church, Trinity Episcopal, and other area faith leaders will hold an ecumenical community prayer vigil today at 7 p.m. at the Highland Park Presbyterian Church, 330 Laurel Avenue, Highland Park. All are welcome. Today, Highland Park High School, located at 433 Vine Avenue, in conjunction with community partners, is hosting crisis counseling until 2 p.m. and is open to everyone. No appointments are necessary. Additionally, a family assistance center will open tomorrow, July 6th at noon, to provide support services and crisis assistance to those who were directly impacted at the parade. The location and hours of operations are pending. We'll get that information to the community as soon as we have it. Please go to the city website for more information. The Highland Park Police Department, the American Red Cross, and the FBI Victim Services Response Team are assisting with additional partners. The teams will engage with victims and families to assess their immediate needs and provide crisis intervention and other forms of emergency assistance. Anyone who is a victim of the incident and is in need of support can call 800-CALL-FBI. I know what a generous community we are a part of, and we are overwhelmed with the amount of support offered not only from those in Highland Park, but the surrounding region and throughout the nation. Thank you. For those who are looking to donate to victims and in support of the community, we ask that you be mindful of potential scams on GoFundMe and other fundraising avenues. This afternoon, we'll share additional information on the city's website regarding how to donate to the victims, survivors, and those who support the community. For all who have reached out with offers of equipment, food, and professional services, we thank you. Thank you all for coming out today. I'll now turn the mic back to Deputy Chief Covelli.
Thanks, Mayor. Any questions?
Justin was in it. Can you tell us about the motivation? Is the suspect cooperating, answering questions, and what more are you learning about the motivation either from him or from his online footage?
At this point, we have not developed a motive from him. Investigators are very much furthering the investigation. They have been in discussions with him. I don't have anything to say about motivation thus far because it hasn't been provided.
Sir, we've seen disturbing videos online. Were warning signs missed?
The question was, there's disturbing videos online that have been seen. We are reviewing those. Those are going to be a part of any investigation efforts by our task force investigators, Highland Park Police. We'll look at them and we'll see what they reveal.
Should someone flag those videos?
Bill.
Give us an idea of where in Illinois did he purchase the weapons, and also when he went to his mother's house, did he tell her what he had done, or was she unaware?
The question was, where did he purchase the weapons, and did he tell his mother what he had done? He purchased the weapons locally, within the region, so the Chicagoland area. When he went to his mother's, we have no indication that he provided any information to her.
Did he make? Can you give us an idea of how many weapons did he purchase then, and when was that?
So he was in possession of the firearm the day of, the rifle. He was in possession of another rifle in his vehicle when he was pulled over by police. He also had other firearms that were recovered from a residence that he was living in Highwood.
Those were all in his name
They were in his name.
and all legally purchased.
They were legally purchased.
Chris, his level of disguise, right? So how did you guys identify him at this point? I mean, clearly there was a lot of planning. And do you have an idea when he placed himself on the roof? Like, is there a timeline?
So we are working on the timeline, and we don't want to come out with inaccurate information on timing. One of the asks that we have is members of the community, if you have any video of this individual that is walking toward the parade, at the parade, potentially on the roof or exiting, to please call 1-800-CALL-FBI. As far as the disguise went, he wore that in an attempt to conceal himself.
Do you have pictures of that you can offer? I mean, what did he look like? Or
Potentially, I'll look into that and I'll have to get back to you.
How do you guys, Chris, I'm sorry.
Considering the extensive digital trail, the disturbing videos, the amount of views garnered, was he known to law enforcement beforehand? And if not, why not?
I can't get into that right now. There have been some law enforcement contacts, nothing of a violent nature. I can't get into the specifics of the context of that.
And how many rifles? Our colleagues at NBC News are reporting that he purchased multiple weapons. Can you give us any details as to the weapons and how many he may have been in possession of?
At this time, I know of the 2 rifles, and I know that there were potentially pistols that he had owned as well.
When did he purchase the guns? Sir, has he made any statements to investigators, and does he have an attorney?
I'm not going to go into what he may or may not have said. The investigation is still moving forward. I'll provide that information later on.
Do you have any evidence he targeted anyone specific or was shooting randomly?
Shooting appears to be completely random.
Is it possible he chose the community because of the high population of Jewish people? I know people are concerned that it was an anti-Semitic attack.
We have no information to suggest at this point it was racially motivated by religion, or any other protected status.
Chris, with all the videos that appeared on...
I believe still in place is an assault rifle ban in Highland Park. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't have information on that right now, but we will get back to you on specifics.
With all the videos of Primo prior to this, did anyone ever call Highland Park Police or tip off authorities that these were online?
No, we were not made aware of these videos.
Chris, how did you identify him as a suspect? Through surveillance video or by tracing the guns?
So investigators did a really good job. The ATF was phenomenal yesterday. They expedited a trace of the firearm. That was a major investigative lead for us. In addition to that, the witness statements, the videos that we obtained from people that turned them in, and the businesses, they all helped us tremendously.
Can you break down the number of injuries, not the deceased, and can you also then further break down how many of those were gunshot victims and how many of the injured were not gunshot victims?
The information I have right now is that all of those that were either transported to the hospital or self-drove themselves to the hospital were injured by gunfire. So over 30 individuals that were injured by the gunfire, and they went to the 3 hospitals we mentioned yesterday.
Do you have any more info on the ages?
As a woman, how were you able to identify so early on that you were looking for a male and the age range?
He was identified by a number of there were police officers that were able to recognize his photo once it was revealed, and that helped tremendously.
So, Chris, can you help us to understand, when you say you know he was dressed as a woman during the shooting, is that based on photographic evidence or what eyewitnesses have said? And also, can you tell us what type of weapon was used in the shooting?
So it was a high-powered rifle that was used. It was shot high-velocity rounds.
Was it an AR-15?
It could be similar to an AR-15. It was similar to an AR-15. As far as identifying him with the woman's, he was seen on video camera in the woman's clothes. Video camera played a tremendous role in how we were able to identify him both leaving initially and as he left.
Chris, you say he was in a dress. Was it
duplicates? The guns the same, and were they bought at the same? No.
Different and bought at separate locations.
Did he also have any more to a disguise? Did he have a wig on? Because it was reported that it was a man
I'm not
with long
exactly
hair.
sure what the woman's attire consisted of. Initially, it was reported that this person had long hair, so a wig isn't out of the question.
Can you tell us more about the business where he was? Which roof was he on, and how did he get there exactly?
Can you repeat that?
Can you tell us more about the business where he was? Which roof was it, and how did he get in there?
It was a local business right in that vicinity. I'm not sure the name of the business. He was able to access the roof through a ladder that's affixed to the side of the building. We'll take 3 more, okay?
What happened with that clothing? Did he dump it somewhere, or did he have it on him?
Parents at all. We've talked with teachers who he was with in elementary school that have contacted his parents several times saying there were issues with him as a teen and a young child growing up. What type of cooperation have you had
One of
with
the
parents?
things that is important to remember here is the diligence and investigation. We're going to reach out to everybody we possibly can that has information, firsthand information about him, whether that's family members, teachers, friends, whoever it is that has information. But it does take time. It takes time to gather who may know him, who knew him in the past, teachers. That is something that task force investigators are working on. They've interviewed a number of people thus far, but please keep in mind we're 24 hours in. There's a lot of work to be done here. We're not done. I don't want to get into levels of cooperation.
Were the weapons modified at all?
No indication the weapons were modified.
One more. Have any children passed the weapons?
No children have passed away. We'll take your last one.
They gave when he bought the weapons. What address did he give?
I'm not sure what address he gave. I can get back to you on that. All right, we'll be back this afternoon about 3 o'clock. We hopefully have an updated status on charges. He'll remain in custody at this point.
3 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Talk about how you knew him as a young boy.
We've just been listening to an ongoing news conference here in Highland Park on that July 4th massacre that occurred at a parade just behind me here on Central Avenue here in the middle of Highland Park. We've learned a lot of new information from investigators, including the alleged gunman apparently was dressed as a woman, disguising himself before he climbed up onto a roof just behind me, a few buildings down this way, and positioned himself almost like a sniper when he started to shoot at people going to the parade. We also learned the alleged murder weapon here is an AR-15 style assault rifle, which he discharged several rounds, up to 70 from what I remember from my notes here. We're also learning that a lot lot of good police work came into play here, and also just regular people telling police what they saw. They noticed a suspicious person, and then once police saw some videos, they recognized who this person could be. They were able to apprehend him later on. Somebody in the community saw him driving a car, noticed it matched the description, and that's when police moved in. I want to bring in Pete Williams right now, our Justice correspondent. And Pete, I think one of the things that's interesting for me at this point right now is how meticulous investigators are being. They're asking for more and more cell phone videos of anything, any kind of surveillance video that showed the alleged gunman as he approached the buildings, as he was dressed like that woman before he got rid of the disguise. And they're taking their time to build their case, but also to bring charges, because we're now more than 24 hours later after this crime, and we still have no charges yet, Pete.
No, and that's not surprising at this point, although we may, I gather from what Chris Covelli said, that we may have charges by the end of the day. So that would be about the normal timeline. I think the one thing that's most interesting is who was not there at the news conference. You saw nobody from the federal government, which indicates that so far this case is being handled by local authorities, which tells you that there's nothing that would bring the FBI in or federal jurisdiction. And you heard Deputy Chief Covelli say that they have no information on motive, but we've heard separately from federal officials that there's nothing that leads them to believe that this was a terror-style motivated attack. And you heard Covelli himself say nothing to indicate that it was targeting any specific race or religion. Highland Park obviously has a considerable Jewish population, and that was one question that went through everyone's mind. But it does seem that the key piece of evidence that led them to him in the first place was, as we suspected, the trace of the weapon itself, which he dropped after the shooting, the police say. Of course, every firearm that's properly manufactured has a serial number on it. And because he bought the weapon himself that was used in the shooting, they were easily able to figure out whose weapon it was, and that's what led them on the hunt for Robert Crimo. We had heard last night, Tom, that there was this indication that the authorities had talked to somebody else who said that they thought when he left his apartment yesterday he was dressed in women's clothing. Now they've confirmed that they believe that he did that in order to try to conceal himself so that when he left the area he could sort of more easily blend in with people and wouldn't be recognized. But no sign it's a hate crime. The trace of the weapon important. And the fact that they now have a pretty good idea of what happened before and after. But that's why they want all that cell phone video and witness information for two things. The witness information to try to shed some light on the motive, and the cell phone video to try to build the best timeline that they can. And of course, whatever charges are filed today, the authorities can always supersede them with additional charges in the future as they learn more information, Tom.
Pete, stand by. We're going to bring in NBC News analyst and former ATF special agent in charge, Jim Kavanaugh. Jim, there was a moment there where police weren't exactly explaining how they connected the dots, essentially how they were able to track down the alleged shooter. And then later in the news conference, we learned that after he loses the disguise, he blends back in, he goes to his mother's home. Once police reviewed some videos, they recognized him, but also, as Pete mentioned, they were able to trace that firearm. So he purchases the AR-15 style rifle legally. They're saying he planned this a few weeks ago. Police used those two key facts to zone in on the shooter. Then eventually they got the tip that he was driving around the neighborhood.
That's right, Tom. And as Pete described, what happens in the command post is a lot of loose ends come in, a lot of ephemeral tips, a lot of names of people come into the command post, like say this guy's name enters the command post, which is, really humming yesterday afternoon. That's good, but he's probably not the only name coming in. But when you come in and do a hard gun trace from the weapon left at the murder scene, and it traces right back to Crimo, that's a hard fact, provable in a court of law that this gun was purchased by this guy. That's a hard fact they can rely on. Then they spin up, hey, this guy comes to the top now. Who is he? Where is he? What's his picture? Do I know him? Was he interviewed before? What's his background? Where is he? Oh, yeah, he was dressed like a woman. Oh, his cell phone pinged in the area. Oh, he bought the rifle. And it starts to build strongly. And that's going to be key evidence,
Jim,
even in the warrant that they may get later today.
You know, people are here in this neighborhood and this community are very upset because they said there's those social media videos, which were asked about during the news conference. Police say they never got any calls about those videos. To their knowledge, they didn't even know about these videos. But when you see the videos, they are dark, they are twisted, and they clearly depict some type of mass shooting sequence. Is it enough to sort of give the police some kudos for obviously tracking down this shooter as quickly as they did? But a lot of people here are upset that they didn't get to the shooter before this even happened. Is that fair, or is it just so impossible for investigators to try to track someone like this down, even though some of these clips were seen by hundreds of people?
Tom, you're right at the crux of the matter, and it's not impossible. It is difficult. But as a nation, I think we can do a better job at getting right into this crux of the point between the First Amendment and being able to observe behavior that's public on the public internet. Now, you know, it's a daunting task. There's a lot of stuff out there. But I think as a nation, we need First Amendment scholars, lawmakers, attorneys, DOJ people to steer us. I mean, the First Amendment can't be a suicide pact for the nation. And we don't have to, as law enforcement, turn a blind eye to observable, erratic, bizarre behavior. We should be able to notice it, see it, maybe act on it, and we won't be able to stop them all. But, you know, it's almost as if we were turning our head away and saying, oh, you know, it's all protected speech. And yet a policeman can observe bizarre behavior. I did as a uniformed officer many times, observe bizarre behavior without arresting people. And we need to do a better job, you know, as a nation where we can maybe pick up these vibrations from these guys in this community that have this ideation of mass murder.
These red flags, if you will, Jim. Of course, I want to get real quickly to Kathy Park. She's been covering the victims, the ones who survived, who've been at the hospital. Kathy, what's the latest on the more than 30 people who were also injured in this shooting?
So, Tom, we are outside Highland Park Hospital, and it's less than a mile away from the shooting scene. So they received an influx of patients yesterday, roughly 26 patients, and doctors say that 25 sustained gunshot wounds. However, we have learned that 19 people have been released as of this morning. And according to the latest update, we know that 2 people are still being treated at this hospital and several others are being treated at local area hospitals. But we heard the chief just a few moments ago saying that the injured, that number is at least 30, but this does not include the 6 individuals who were killed. Right now, we're still waiting for the complete list of the victims. The Lake County Coroner's Office says that information should be released at some point today or early tomorrow morning, but we do have some names confirmed at this hour. Nicholas Toledo, he was 76 years old. He recently moved to the area from Mexico, and he was with his family at the time when he was struck and killed at the parade. And another individual is Jackie Sundheim. She was a lifelong member of the North Shore Congregation Synagogue, and she was remembered for her warmth and kindness. She was an events coordinator and also an educator at the synagogue. Tom?
All right, Kathy Park for us talking about 2 of those 6 victims. And I spoke to 2 doctors who were out here who responded right after the shooting. They were at the parade, and they say the people that were directly hit by that weapon, that AR-style weapon, they immediately died. There was no chance of saving them. Everyone else, luckily, it sounds like, is going to make it out, and we're talking about more than 30 people injured. That concludes our coverage for right now. We'll have much more tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. A reminder, we are awaiting the charges to be brought against this 21-year-old shooter. You can watch updates throughout the day on NBCNews.com or on our streaming service, NBC News Now. For all of us at NBC News, I'm Tom Llamas in Highland Park.